The day started like any other, or so I thought. I'd been sticking to my routine for weeks, trying to brush off the nagging sense that something was amiss. Rachel had grown distant lately, but I convinced myself that it was just work stress. We had built a life together, and I never imagined anything could disrupt it. But looking back, the clues were there, little things that only made sense in retrospect. My days passed in a haze, driving around, running errands, just going through the motions. That particular day felt the same. Until an unexpected incident at a stoplight threw everything into disarray. I was already feeling somewhat drained, but nothing could have prepared me for what was about to unfold. Being in the wrong place at the wrong time never ends well. I couldn't control it. While waiting at a red light, a car pulled up beside me, and the driver gestured for me to roll down my window. "You've got a flat tire," he said. Grateful for the heads up, I pulled into the Walmart parking lot to check it out. Sure enough, a screw had punctured the tire, causing a slow but steady leak. Great, just what I needed, another problem to solve. I decided to head home and buy a jar of that tire sealant. When I got back, I removed the screw. Big mistake. Air started hissing out immediately. Panicked, I screwed it back in and refilled the tire at the gas station in the parking lot. I was just 15 miles from home and kept an eye on it, planning to use the sealant if the air pressure got too low. Around 5 miles from home, I saw in the side mirror that the tire was getting flatter. I pulled into a store, but there was no air pump, so I used the sealant. Green. Goo oozed out, living up to its name, but at least the air stopped leaking. As I was about to get back into the car, a large pickup truck pulled up. It was one of those oversized models with huge tires, so tall you'd need a ladder to climb in. I recognized it. The door opened, and a tall man with blonde hair, cowboy boots, and a massive belt buckle stepped out. I chuckled to myself at the sight, but my amusement faded quickly. The passenger door opened, and out stepped a beautiful woman with raven black hair. I knew her all too well. It was Rachel, my wife of 18 years. What on earth was she doing here? I parked off to the side, and they didn't notice me. My car, a small, inconspicuous company vehicle, blended in. They walked into the store hand in hand, with her laughing. It felt like a punch to the gut. I stood there, paralyzed, struggling to breathe or move. Then I remembered where I'd seen this man before. He worked at the same place as Rachel. She was the office manager at a mental health clinic, and he handled customer service. I'd seen his truck outside her building. But the question was, why was Rachel with him now? His name eluded me at first, but then it came to me, Jerry Garner. Now, the real question was, why wasn't Rachel at work? I intended to find out. I returned to my car and waited. When they exited the store, each holding a coffee cup, he helped her into the truck. They drove off, and I followed discreetly. They eventually pulled into our driveway, and he parked inside the garage, which closed behind them, blocking my view. I waited in my car for about half an hour, but the tire kept gnawing at my thoughts. I checked it, but couldn't tell if it was losing more air. 2 hours later, they finally left, passing by me as I held a file folder to obscure my face. Not that they would have noticed, they were too engrossed in each other. Rachel wasn't supposed to leave work until 5, and it was only 2:30 now, so I had some time. I had to go inside to see what I might find. At 4, I had to pick up Toby, and I had no idea what I would say. Toby was my 15-year-old daughter, and I couldn't imagine what I might discover inside, but I hoped for some clarity. The house was eerily quiet when I walked in. The only sounds were the drip of a faucet I still needed to fix in Toby's bathroom and the hum of the air from the vents. I searched around but found nothing out of place. Upstairs, I checked the bed. The sight of the freshly made sheets made my heart sink. I pressed my back against the wall, sliding down to the floor in numb disbelief. It felt like there could only be one explanation. I sat there for about 30 minutes, my mind spinning in confusion, unable to sort through my thoughts. I felt utterly drained. My stomach rumbled, prompting me to grab a Sprite. Sweating and feeling overheated, I headed to the bathroom, grabbing a washcloth, soaking it in cold water, and wiping my face. The coolness helped a bit, and that's when I noticed something. The shower floor was still damp. They had showered before heading back to work. In a daze, I wandered back to the bedroom, sitting on the edge of the bed, the same bed Rachel and her lover had just used. The thought jolted me, and I glanced around, horrified. It felt like I was standing in a crime scene. I had no idea what to do next. Divorcing Rachel was a certainty, But beyond that, I had no plan, and I still needed to pick up Toby from school. What would I even tell her? I stumbled out to the car, feeling as if I'd been in a daze for days. My head throbbed, and I probably looked terrible, but I couldn't leave Toby stranded. Suddenly I realized she was the one person I could count on. I had to make sure she was okay. As I pulled up in the school's pickup line, I spotted her by the entrance. She walked towards the car, looking so beautiful that it made my heart ache. Toby had inherited her mother's dark hair and a complexion that looked almost Mediterranean, along with the most striking eyes dark brown with flecks of gold and green. The doctor called them hazel, but I'd never seen anything like them. She was tall like me, with long, honey-brown legs and a natural grace. She tossed her backpack into the back seat and leaned in for a kiss, but froze mid-motion. "Daddy, what's wrong?" she asked, worry lining her voice. "Are you sick? Did something happen? Is Mummy okay? What's going on?" Daddy, her voice grew more anxious with each question, and I could hear the fear creeping in. I had to say something. "I'm fine, kitten," I replied. "No one's hurt or sick, but we need to talk." "Let's go to the park, okay? Just give me a minute to hold you and explain, all right? No more questions until we get there, okay?" "Okay, Daddy, but you're scaring me," she said, looking concerned. "I know, kitten, but it's going to be all right," I assured her, hoping that wasn't a lie. It took just 5 minutes to reach the park, and I had pushed her on those swings countless times before. Rachel and I used to sit on the benches, watching her play. Those were such joyful moments. Was my life destined to become just a collection of memories from better days? We walked over to a bench, and she grabbed my hand, swinging her arms like she did as a little girl. We sat down, and I struggled to find the right words. "Just tell me, Dad," she urged. "I can handle it." "I'm not sure I can," I admitted. I then told her everything, what I had seen and felt, and tears streamed down my cheeks. She held my hand the whole time, and when I finished, she clung to me tightly. "This doesn't sound good, Dad," she said. "We need to go home and talk to Mum about it. What happens next depends on what she says. It may look bad now, but we don't have the full story. We have to ask her." I kissed the top of her head, feeling a surge of pride. My little girl was braver than I was. She pulled me up by my hand. "Do you want to go?" I asked. Her eyes sparkled. She had recently earned her driver's license. A flicker of doubt crossed her face, but it vanished quickly. She drove us home carefully, and sure enough, Rachel's car was parked in the garage. Rachel welcomed us with hugs and kisses, as if everything was normal. Either she was a masterful actress, or I had misunderstood the situation entirely. "How about some takeout tonight?" she suggested cheerfully. "My treat. I think we need to talk to you, Mum," Toby said. "Okay, is everything all right?" Sweetie Rachel asked. "I'm not sure," Toby replied. "Let's find out." We went inside, and I sat next to Toby on the couch, while Rachel stayed in the hideous chair she insisted on buying. "What's wrong?" she asked, with no trace of concern on her face. "How was your day?" I inquired. She looked puzzled. "The usual," she replied. "One of the reps brought lunch from the onion basket, and it was so busy that I barely had a moment to myself." "Why do you ask so? You were at the office all day," Toby questioned. "Of course," Rachel said, sounding confused. "Why all the questions? What's going on so you weren't at the house this afternoon with Jerry Garner?" I asked. Her face went pale. "No, of course not," she replied defensively. "Are you accusing me of something?" "Oliver, I saw you," I insisted. "You didn't see anything," she stammered. "What are you trying to pull here? He's not lying, Mum," Toby stated firmly. "I think you are. I'm not going to ask Angel for confirmation she would lie for you, but I'll call David Jones, your boss. He wouldn't lie." "What's his number?" "He's out of town tonight," Rachel said quickly. "I'll have him call you tomorrow." "Why are you two trying to trap me? Do you really think you can corner me like this? What are you accusing me of?" She was trying to turn the tables. "I think you've been lying to yourself," I told her. "You lied, Rachel, and we all know it." "Why did you do it?" I could see her mind racing, searching for the right words. Finally, she admitted, "All right, yes, I was here. That's why I didn't want to tell you. I knew you'd grill me and accuse me of something no one accused you," Toby replied, "but I am now. You tried to make it seem like Dad was lying, twisting everything to cover up your own lies. What are you hiding, Mum?" "Are you having an affair with that idiot? You don't even know him," Rachel snapped. "Why call him an idiot? I've met him twice," Toby said, "and the way he looks at me makes me want to shower. But that's beside the point." "Are you having an affair with him?" Rachel's eyes darted around like she was cornered. After a moment, she broke down. "I didn't want it to come to this," she confessed, her voice quivering. I wasn't ready for what Toby pressed. I fell in love with Jerry, she admitted, glancing at me. I'm sorry, Oliver. It just happened. We worked closely, and I don't know, he feels like my other half. We connected, and I couldn't stop it. We're in love. I was planning to tell you when the time was right. After we both got divorced, we were going to get married. I'm sorry, I didn't want you to find out like this. Toby, it'll be okay, you can see your dad whenever you want. Jerry has a lovely house by the lake, and he even has a daughter. He really likes you, Toby, and he'll be thrilled. Are you out of your mind? Toby shouted. I'm not moving in with that creep. He'd probably sneak into my room at night. I'll live with Dad. I don't want to see you anymore. How could you do this? She spun around and stormed upstairs, slamming the door shut. I heard the lock click. Rachel turned to me, her face pale and trembling. She'll get over it, she whispered. Jerry's a good man, Oliver. I think you'll come to like him. I'm sorry, but I need to find my own happiness. Jerry makes me happy, and that's all that matters. I just stared at her, struggling to comprehend the person she had become. It felt like she was a stranger. I wasn't going to argue. It was clear she was lost to me. Whatever you say, Rachel, I replied flatly. When are you moving out? Moving out, she echoed, looking confused. I don't have anywhere to go, she said. Jerry is still married, and we need to talk to his wife before we can move forward. Plus, we both have to finalize our divorces before we can plan anything. No, you're moving out, I insisted. Coldly. I'll give you 3 days, her jaw dropped. What are you talking about? You can't just kick me out of my own house. If anyone's leaving, it's you. You're forgetting something, I said calmly. This is my house. I owned it before I even met you, and it was fully paid off before we got married. It's not marital property. My name is the only one on the deed. You're moving out. Where am I supposed to go? She asked, her voice shaking. Are you really going to throw me out onto the street? I don't care where you go, I responded. Maybe you can. Find a room at the Cheetahs Motel, you know, one of those places that rents by the hour. That's where you and people like you belong. Her eyes welled up with tears. That's harsh, Oliver, she said quietly. You don't have to call me names. I didn't plan to fall in love with Jerry, it just happened. We connected, and I realized I needed to be with him. I never meant to hurt you, oh, so you just accidentally hurt me, I shot back sarcastically. Like tripping and accidentally poking your eye out. My mom used to warn me about that. Now I understand. It was an accident, right? Well, that makes everything better. You don't have to be sarcastic, she replied. Why can't you just accept that Jerry and I love each other? I don't know, Rachel, I responded. Maybe because this morning you told me you loved me, and now you're saying you love him. I'm a little confused. I do love you, Oliver, she said, almost pleading. I'll always love you. But I'm in love with Jerry. Oh, well, that makes it clear, I said, shaking my head. You've been telling me you were in love with me every day for 18 years. I thought that's why we got married. I guess I was wrong. No, we were in love, she insisted, reaching out for my hand. I pulled back. You've got 3 days, Rachel, I said. If you're not gone by then, I'll have the sheriff come and throw your stuff out on the lawn, please. Oliver, she begged, her voice trembling. It doesn't have to end this way. We can still be friends. Jerry wants to be your friend too. We have Toby to think about. I told you I love you. I don't want to lose you as a friend. We've been through so much together. Can't you see that it doesn't have to end like this? I glared at her, and all the sorrow and grief I'd been carrying suddenly shifted into a fiery rage. You're delusional, Rachel, I muttered, my tone icy and flat. To be friends with you. With that scumbag? Never. Tell him if he ever crosses my path, he should run. As for you, you're my enemy now. I'll ruin everything you hold dear. You have 3 days after that. I don't want to see you again. I turned away, heading to the bedroom, leaving her stunned and speechless. That was the breaking point for me. She followed me around, still talking about maintaining a friendship, while I moved her belongings into the guest room. Her clothes filled the closet, too much to carry all at once, so I tossed them onto the bed, grabbed a pile, and moved them to the spare room, hanging them up in the closet. She lingered nearby, talking and watching me. When she turned to hang up more of her things, I seized the opportunity to slip out and lock the bedroom door. I heard her footsteps in the hallway, but when she tried the door handle, she gave up and walked away. A few minutes later, I received a text from Toby. Are you okay, Dad's kitten? I replied. How about you? Not really. But I will be, she responded. Okay, love you too. Can you drive me to school in the morning? I don't want to ride with her, Cece. I crawled into bed and lay awake for hours trying to figure out my next steps. I must have drifted off around 3, but my alarm went off soon after. I got up, took a shower, and called my boss. I told him I was going through a divorce and needed some time off. He encouraged me to take as long as I needed and offered his sympathies. I headed downstairs, brewed some coffee, and drank a couple of cups. I made breakfast for Toby and myself. She came down on time, looking as radiant as always, and eagerly ate. After some time, Rachel joined us, poured herself some coffee, and tried to chat, but we both ignored her. When it was time to take Toby to school, Rachel asked if she was ready. Toby just glanced at her, then turned to me and said, "Are you ready, Daddy?" I jingled my keys, and she grabbed her backpack. "Fine," Rachel said, her voice filled with frustration. "Act like kids. If that makes you feel better," she stormed off, grabbed her purse, shot us another look, and left. I dropped Toby off at school, and she gave me a quick kiss before getting out. I lingered in the car, watching her enter the building, and thought about my friend Dan, who had recently gone through a divorce. I decided to call him and ask for advice about a lawyer. Dan didn't suggest his own lawyer, but recommended his ex-wife's lawyer instead and gave me the contact info. I found the number and called. A woman answered, and after explaining my situation, she agreed to meet me that afternoon, so I began to make some moves. We had investments, but there wasn't much I could address immediately. However, I was determined to prevent Rachel from running up high credit card bills, so I called the credit card company and lowered our card limits to $500. Of course, this affected me too, but I wasn't about to bankroll her affair. My meeting with Elizabeth Baxter started off rough. She had assumptions that needed clearing before we could proceed. She assumed I was leaving Rachel for someone else. "You've got it all wrong," I clarified. "Rachel's the one involved with a co-worker. He's married, and they're both planning to divorce and marry each other." "I'm sorry," she replied. "I don't take on cases for people leaving their spouses for someone else." "It's a matter of principle, I understand," I said. "We have a daughter, and I want to minimize the fallout. Do you think I could gain custody of her?" "It's possible," she said. "In theory, custody can go to either parent, but in practice, it's tougher for fathers, especially with daughters." "How old is she, and does she want to stay with you?" "She's 15, and yes, she wants to stay with me," I responded. "That's a big advantage," she noted. "In this state, children over 14 can choose their preferred parent, and their wishes carry significant weight. If she were younger, your odds would be low, but since she's 15 and wants to stay with you, it strengthens your case. Just do your best for the custody agreement." As I drove home, I kept pondering my next move. I knew I had to take action, but it had to be within the law. Getting arrested would mean losing Toby, and that wasn't an option. I needed a well-thought-out plan. Doing something drastic wouldn't work. I suspected Jerry's wife was as in the dark as I had been, so my first step would be to inform her. I needed to make a checklist first. I'd reach out to Rachel's parents. They had always been fond of me and adored Toby, so they should hear the truth directly. But how would I approach them? Informing our friends was also on my agenda, and I figured I could cause a stir through social media. That became the top priority on my list. Rachel had managed a Facebook page for our family, so I experimented with it, used the messenger, and pieced together the details. I looked online and discovered that Jerry's spouse had been doing some similar investigating. I captured a few images and shared them on Rachel's profile, announcing our upcoming divorce and mentioning that she had found her true love in Jerry, even attaching his photo. Afterward, I changed my password and logged out, feeling a sense of gratification. I wondered how long it would take for her friends and relatives to flood her phone and Facebook with messages. I wished that Jerry's wife would grasp what was going on. I didn't know her, and I regretted the turmoil this would bring into her life, but if she was in my position, she deserved the truth. I called my mother, and the conversation went as badly as I anticipated. After the initial shock, she just mentioned that she would inform Dad and that they would be there for me if I needed support. I decided to let Rachel break the news to her own parents since I valued my relationship with them and didn't want to cause any rifts. Besides, I didn't even know how to begin that conversation. Telling them their daughter is an unfaithful woman didn't seem like the best approach. I figured they'd likely blame me for the situation. By around 2 p.m., things started falling apart when Rachel's name appeared on my phone. I picked up, and she was furious. "You jerk," she fumed, which oddly gave me a sense of satisfaction. "You just couldn't leave things alone, could you? I know you blocked me on Facebook. Take that nonsense down. Jerry's wife doesn't know yet, and my friends keep asking me what's going on. My parents are aware. Oliver, fix this now." No, Rachel, you don't get to order me around, I responded firmly. Are you acting like a child? Take it down, Oliver. I'm serious, she insisted. You should be relieved, I replied. Now, everyone knows about you and your soulmate. Are you embarrassed that people see you as unfaithful? She started to respond, but then hesitated, realizing how ridiculous her denial would sound. Oliver, please take it down. This isn't how things were supposed to play out. You lost your right to my respect and courtesy when you betrayed me, Rachel, I stated coldly. You're on your own now. Deal with it. I hung up, and when she called again, I ignored it. It was time to pick up Toby. When I told Toby about my chat with Elizabeth Baxter, she was glad to hear she might stay with me, but overall, she seemed down. What's going on with Mum, Dad, she asked. Well, you know I love her, but she has always been a bit immature. Sometimes it felt like I was taking care of two kids, her and you. Didn't you notice that? Not really, but now that you mention it, yeah, she's impulsive, but I never thought she'd do this. We'll work it out, she assured me. Dad, I never want to be in the same place as that man unless you're there. I don't care what you have to do, just make sure it doesn't happen, okay? I promise, I replied. We grabbed pizza on the way home, and as I enjoyed my second slice, my phone rang. It was Bob, Rachel's father. I wasn't expecting it. I told Toby, and she suggested putting it on speaker. Bob didn't waste time. Oliver, I don't know what's happening, but Rachel came over last night asking to stay with us. Any idea why? Did you ask her? I responded. She said you kicked her out, Bob replied. Well, yeah, but I began. Did she tell you why Bob cut me off? No, she said she would explain later, but wasn't ready yet, he added. Don't you think you should wait for her explanation? I suggested. Why don't you just tell me? Bob insisted. She's been having an affair with Jerry Garner, someone from her workplace. They plan to get divorced and marry each other, I revealed. That's unbelievable, Oliver. How can you be certain? Bob asked, clearly stunned. I caught them together yesterday, and she confessed, I explained. Are you positive there's no mistake? Bob questioned. Toby suddenly interjected. Hey, Grandpa, I'm on speaker. There's no mistake, I was there when she told Dad. I'm so sorry, Grandpa. I love you. Her voice wavered as she began to cry. Bob's voice softened as he tried to comfort her. Don't cry, sweetie. Stay strong. We love you, and Grandma does too. I'll try to talk some sense into your mum. Oliver, are you still there? Yeah, I am. I'm really sorry, Bob, but you don't need to worry about Toby. You'll always be her grandparents that will never change. I know you care for Rachel, and I respect whatever decisions you make. I just hope this situation doesn't make you resent me, I said, attempting to console him. That's not going to happen, Bob assured me. I'll try to figure out what's going on. Reach out if you need anything. Things turned out better than I had feared. Life moves on, and you do what you can. I won't go into the details of the divorce process. It was long, painful, and never got any easier. Rachel had unrealistic expectations, thinking she would get custody of Toby, but that didn't work out. Elizabeth Baxter's skills lived up to her reputation. I was granted full custody because Toby expressed her preference to live with me during a private meeting with the judge. The ruling allowed Rachel unlimited visitation but stipulated that Toby wouldn't be left alone with her and Jerry Garner. It ultimately didn't matter much since Jerry's wife also divorced him, and the whole soulmate idea seemed to be more of a stretch, at least on his end. Just a couple of weeks after the affair came to light, Jerry was already searching for his next romantic interest. All their lofty plans evaporated like morning mist. The divorce took 7 months to finalize, but unexpectedly, Rachel requested counseling during the second court hearing. Neither Elizabeth Baxter nor I opposed it, so the judge approved it. We were assigned 8 to 10 sessions with an odd pair of older counselors. In our first session, they asked us to outline our goals. Rachel's objectives were lengthy and complex. She seemed to think I needed to understand that her joy was somehow a cosmic priority, and that she only wanted positive outcomes. My goal, on the other hand, was much simpler. What do you hope to achieve in these sessions? Mr. Barryman, one counselor asked. My goal is just to complete them, I responded. The counselor looked disapproving. Mr. Barryman, don't you want to address the issues that led to this point in your marriage? Sorry, Mr. Rodman, but I don't think these issues are mine to fix. I have no interest in addressing them. I'm content with my problems and plan to keep them, I said. Rachel and Mr. Rodman both seemed appalled. Oliver, how can you expect things to improve if you refuse to talk about them? Rachel demanded. I have no desire to, I replied. Let me be clear, I'm not here to resolve or work through anything. I'm here because it's required. I'll do what's necessary, and then we'll proceed with the divorce. Do you realize that if I report to the judge that you're not cooperating, you could face contempt of court? Mr. Rodman warned. Is that so? I asked. You mean if you lie to the judge? These sessions are recorded, and I'm sure my lawyer would happily subpoena those records for perjury. I'm present, and I'm answering your questions. That's cooperation. He turned red, likely realizing that the judge expected more than compliance. But I wasn't responsible for anyone else's expectations. He assigned activities meant to make me spend more time with Rachel, and she made efforts to sway me. Oliver, what would it take for you to reconsider the divorce and work things out? She asked. An act of God, I replied. She waited for further explanation, but I offered none. What do you mean by that? She finally asked. Well, if you could reverse time and never get involved with Jerry, that might do it. Otherwise, only a higher power could change things. Do you have any supernatural abilities I'm not aware of, Rachel? Other than attracting other men, I mean. We carried on with the tedious exercises and affirmations until it was finally over. Back in court, the judge inquired if we had made any progress. Your Honor, my client is not interested in staying married to his wife, Elizabeth Baxter stated. We request that the divorce be finalized as soon as possible. This has gone on long enough. The judge seemed to agree, as the final order arrived in the mail 10 days later. Toby saw her mother frequently because she spent a lot of time with her grandparents. Occasionally, Rachel would plan activities for just the two of them, but their bond was never the same. Toby spent much of her time with her friends, especially a petite blonde named Sabrina, who was practically a member of our family. Sabrina was as sweet as she was charming, and I enjoyed having her around. They even started including me in their activities, with water skiing being one of their favorites. We owned a boat, and as soon as summer vacation began, we'd head to a nearby lake every Saturday. One Monday, they suggested we make a whole weekend out of it, bringing the RV and staying until Sunday evening. Since my schedule was open, I agreed. The girls spent the week making plans, and by Thursday, we had packed everything they needed. On Friday afternoon, a new red Jeep Cherokee pulled into the driveway and Sabrina hopped out. A woman who looked almost identical to her stepped out from the driver's seat, and Toby rushed over to embrace her. Sabrina and Toby then guided the slightly anxious woman toward me. Dad, Toby said, this is Julie, Sabrina's mom. I know you haven't met her yet. Julie reached out her hand, smiling. Hi, Oliver. The girls have told me so much about you. Thanks for letting me join this weekend. Honestly, I was starting to feel a bit jealous that they were spending so much time with you instead of me. Her playful grin made it clear why Sabrina was so effortlessly charming. I shot a glance at Toby, who glared at me, and my legs suddenly felt unsteady as I realized what was happening. My nervousness increased when I saw Sabrina raise an eyebrow at me. This is going to be great, I managed to say to Julie, gathering my composure. We always have a blast. Julie wasn't clueless. Her eyes moved from me to the girls, then back. Oh my God, she exclaimed, grasping the situation. You had no idea, did you? The girls. Before she could finish, she was overwhelmed by hugs, kisses, and pleas from Toby and Sabrina. Please, Mum, don't stress about it. We're going to have a great time, Sabrina insisted. It's okay, Julie, Toby added with a cheeky smile. Daddy's going to love you as much as I do, and he's awesome. Julie freed herself from their embrace and gave me an apologetic look. You two, sit on the porch. I need to talk to Oliver, she directed, her voice firm but gentle. The girls giggled as they obeyed, heading to the porch. I'm so sorry, Oliver, Julie said, her cheeks turning red. I had no idea they were trying to set us up. I'll take Sabrina home. She'll be grounded for a month. This is so embarrassing. She looked so small and humiliated that I stepped forward and hugged her. She stiffened at first, but then relaxed into my arms. Yeah, it's awkward, I admitted, but they're just being kids, looking out for us. Let me guess you're single. She laughed softly, meeting my eyes with her large brown ones. Yes, I am. Well then, that's what this is all about, right? You're packed, you've got a free weekend, and the lake is fantastic. I'm not a bad guy, as Toby has probably mentioned. Why don't we just go along with their little plan? It'll be fun, and we can even tease them a bit. What do you think? She hesitated, glanced at the eager faces of the girls, and then smiled. Okay, let's do it. I gave the girls a thumbs up, and they cheered, running toward us. I stopped them before they got too carried away, gently holding each by the arm. Girls, that wasn't very nice, I said, struggling to keep a serious tone. Sabrina growled in a deep voice, I am not cute. We all burst into laughter, breaking the tension. They were too adorable to stay mad at. We know what you're up to, I said, but seriously, you can't just meddle with people's lives like that. Yeah, but I love Julie, and I didn't know how to introduce you two, Toby said with a pout. You could have just told me, I replied. Seeing her disappointment, I softened my tone. It's okay, kiddo. Just don't do it again, all right? She brightened up instantly, and Sabrina tugged on my hand. Let's go. I can't wait. It's going to be so fun. Oliver, you'll see. Julie laughed, a sound that lightened the mood. Sounds like it's going to be amazing, Ollie, she teased. But Sabrina's right, we're burning daylight. We loaded the bags into the jeep, secured the boat, picked up some propane, and set off. It was just a 30-minute drive to the lake. Julie sat up front with me while the girls stayed in the back, playing awful music through their Bluetooth speakers. As we drove, Julie and I got to know each other better. It turned out she owned an insurance company and worked as a financial planner. I found myself glancing at her from time to time. She was cute, with light blonde hair cascading down to her waist. She looked younger than me, though she was just 3 years younger. Her large brown eyes, high cheekbones, and heart-shaped face gave her a youthful look. She was slim, wearing jeans and a button-up shirt, with a tan that suggested a love for outdoor activities. I wondered if Sabrina might look like her mother someday. Once we reached the lake, I prepared the boat while the girls changed into their swimsuits. Julie emerged last, and I almost dropped what I was holding. She looked stunning. She was slender, but had curves in all the right places, with the same confident energy as her daughter, but with a maturity that made her even more appealing. She noticed my stare and playfully winked. Finished, she asked, sparing me the awkwardness with a smile. For now, I replied with a laugh. You know what you look like, Julie, I'm only human. We spent the next few hours water skiing. Julie turned out to be a natural, even handling the boat like a pro while I took my turn skiing. I wasn't as skilled as her or the girls, but I managed. After skiing, we returned to camp, where the girls wanted to cook outdoors. We built a fire, grilled hot dogs, fried up some potatoes and onions, and opened a can of pork and beans. Camp food always tastes better, and the evening was perfect. We sat around the picnic table, chatting like we'd known each other for years. Julie, now Jules as the girls called her, fit right in. She even started calling me Ollie, and the girls kept dropping hints that Jules was single. Eventually I asked, so how come no one's swept you off your feet yet, Jules? You're beautiful, funny, smart, and you've got your own business. She fell silent for a moment, then took a deep breath. Honestly, the main reason is Sabrina, she said. I was young and naive, Ollie. I was in college and thought I had found my forever. A week before graduation, I discovered I was pregnant. I wasn't too upset since we had discussed marriage, but 3 days after I told Brad, I learned he'd been unfaithful. I broke up with him and never looked back. Once Sabrina was born, I didn't have time for dating, and when I finally could, I realized I had this incredible gift, and I couldn't do anything without thinking of her. I get it, I replied. I feel the same way about Toby. She means the world to me, especially over the past year and a half. She's kept me grounded. Julie placed her hand on mine. I know, she said softly. She tells Sabrina and me everything. I'm really sorry, Ollie. Yeah, I sighed. Life can be tough sometimes. We sat quietly for a bit, then looked up to see 2 pairs of approving eyes peeking out from under the canopy. Toby and Sabrina were whispering and giggling, clearly proud of themselves. I adore your daughter, I told Julie. She's like family, with how often she's here. She loves you too, Julie said, her voice wavering. She told me recently that you're like the father she never had. Her eyes welled up, and a tear slid down her cheek. I gently brushed it away. She's an amazing kid, I replied, and her mum is incredible for raising her so well, especially on her own. Julie smiled, then stood up and kissed me on the cheek before heading back to the girls. We had an incredible weekend, and when it was time for them to leave, I walked Julie to her car. Just as she was about to get in, I tapped on her window. "Jules, would you like to go out with me next Friday?" I asked, feeling a bit anxious. Sabrina squealed from inside the car, while Julie flashed a wide smile. What time, she asked. 6, I suggested. "We'll grab dinner and find something fun to do. Sounds perfect," she replied, leaning in to kiss my cheek before driving away. When I got back home, Toby was eagerly waiting. "Did you ask her out?" "Did you kiss her?" she inquired with a grin. I hugged her and gave her a playful tap. "That's for me to know, and it's none of your business." She squealed, and I heard Sabrina's echo from the car. "I knew it. She's perfect for you, Daddy." "I love her so much, and Sabs is like a sister to me," I shrugged. "What happens, happens, Toby. You can't push it. Stop trying to be a matchmaker." She nestled against me. "I know, Daddy, but if I didn't do something, you'd never make a move. Not that I didn't like being the only girl in your life," I laughed. "You'll always have a special place in my heart that no one else can take. You're my baby, and that will never change." She purred with contentment, snuggling for a moment before running off to do her own thing. Our first date went smoothly. I invited her to play racquetball. She was new to the game, but since she had played tennis before, she picked it up quickly. Once she got the hang of hitting the ball off the walls, she did really well. It didn't hurt that she was naturally athletic, quick on her feet, and able to change direction easily, which her small frame helped with. After the game, we relaxed by the court, enjoying a drink. Julie pulled out her phone. "Let's take a picture for the kids," she said. We posed with our rackets and goggles, snapped the photo, and sent it to them. They replied right away, and it turned into a special memory for us. Afterward, we showered, and I took her to a cozy Italian restaurant where we ate our fill. As we sat in the booth, finishing our wine, Julie leaned in close, and I wrapped an arm around her. She nestled against me, smiling, and I realized how genuinely sweet she was, a quality that would never fade. When I dropped her off at her place, she leaned toward me expectantly, and I realized she wanted me to kiss her. So I did, and I wanted it just as much as she did, maybe even more. The kiss was long and tender, her lips soft with a hint of cherry chapstick and wine. As we broke apart, I noticed movement behind the curtains. "Looks like we have an audience," I remarked. She giggled, sounding just like Sabrina, or maybe Sabrina sounded just like her. "I'm not surprised. You know they're trying to match us up, right?" she said. "Does that bother you?" I asked. She blushed and replied, "No, I like everything I've learned about you. Ollie, same here," I said. "We'd better go inside before they tear down the curtains." For the next 4 months, we met up every Friday, growing closer each time, and I hoped our relationship would deepen. I didn't want to push her, but some of our dates got pretty intense toward the end. At the same time, I found I valued our friendship almost as much as I enjoyed being her boyfriend. We were in constant contact, talking on the phone, sending each other funny texts, or just sharing thoughts throughout the day. If I came across something I thought would make Julie laugh, I had to share it with her. We became very close, learning everything about each other's daily lives. We even started having dinner together every Tuesday, spending time with the kids, playing games, and just enjoying each other's company. My affection for Sabrina grew as much as my feelings for her mother. They were so similar that knowing one meant you understood the other. Their differences were subtle, but highlighted how much they had in common. Both of them were truly delightful. Life was good, except for Rachel's persistent presence. She remained a part of Toby's life, which meant she was still in mine. I wanted nothing to do with her, and every time she came to pick up Toby, or when I dropped her off at her grandparents' house, it irritated me. Rachel would try to strike up conversations. She was still living with her parents, along with Jerry, having lost her previous job and now working at another clinic across town. When she became too bothersome, I would ask if she had heard from Jerry, which always shut her up quickly. "How long is it going to take for you to forgive me?" she asked one day. "Forgive you for what I shot back. As far as I know, you don't think you did anything wrong." "I've never heard. Forgive me, Oliver. I made a mistake. I've never heard. I'm sorry for making Toby think you were a liar. I'm sorry for trying to take her away from you, for trying to cheat you in the divorce, and most importantly, I've never heard. I'm sorry for cheating on you." I didn't hear an apology that time either. She just couldn't admit her mistakes. I wasn't even sure what forgiveness would mean in this case. I had come to terms with everything and calmed down. I hadn't forgotten, but I wasn't going to waste my energy holding on to resentment. People are allowed to make mistakes. They can leave you, break up, or end friendships, and that's their decision. You just have to accept it and move forward. People do hurtful things every day. At one point, I wanted to make her and Jerry pay, but I soon realized their punishment was just being themselves. They had to live with who they were, while I planned to live with myself, leaving the lies and betrayal in the past and focusing on my future. Rachel was miserable, and as for Jerry, I wished him all the bad luck in the world, but it wasn't my job to deliver it. I left that up to karma or fate. Rachel became even more upset when she learned I was dating Julie. One time, after I dropped Toby off at her grandparents' house, Rachel confronted me as I was getting into my car. "I heard you're seeing the mother of one of Toby's friends," she said. I just looked at her. "Is it true?" she pressed. "That's none of your business," I replied. "Like hell it isn't," she snapped. "I'm your wife. I have a right to know." "You have a right to nothing," I shot back. "You're not my wife anymore. You found your soulmate, remember, and it wasn't me. After the divorce, my life is my own, and yours is yours. Stay out of mine, Rachel." I left fuming, unable to understand why she just couldn't let things go. When I told Toby about the encounter, she was just as angry as I was. From that point on, I arranged for her grandparents, Bob or Cindy, to handle picking her up, which removed a major source of stress for me. On the 7-month anniversary of our lake trip, I planned a special date for Julie. We went to a nice restaurant and then visited a club. Julie usually didn't drink much, just a beer or a single cocktail, but that night she ordered a second drink. I raised an eyebrow and she laughed. "Yeah, I'm feeling wild and crazy tonight." "You're perfect. Just like always," I told her. "Do you really think so, Ollie?" she asked, tilting her head. "Because I think you're pretty perfect too." "If I'm so perfect, why haven't you asked me to stay over?" she teased. I must have looked surprised because she started laughing. "What? Didn't it even cross your mind?" I gathered my thoughts. Yeah, Jules, I've been thinking about it since I first saw you on the boat in that bikini, but as we got closer, I realized how special you were, and I didn't want to rush things or make you uncomfortable." "You won't scare me away," she reassured me. "I even told the girls not to wait up." "Really? Then why are we still here?" I asked, feeling a rush of excitement. "Let's go, Jules, let's get out of here." "Do you want to spend the night with me?" She blushed, took my hand, and let me help her up. "More than anything else in the world right now," she replied. She stayed close to me as we left, clinging to my arm, her head resting on my shoulder the whole way home. When we pulled into the garage, I opened her door and she stayed beside me all the way to the bedroom. We fell asleep in each other's arms after making love twice, once initiated by me, once by her. I woke up the next morning on my back with her partly lying on top of me, her hair spread over both of us, her cheek resting against my shoulder. I gently ran my fingers through her hair, watching her sleep until she finally opened her eyes. "My place is here, Ollie," she said softly. "I know," I answered. "Would you like me to wake up here every morning?" she asked, looking into my eyes. "Are you talking about living together?" "No, sweetie. Well, yes, but what I really mean is, will you marry me, Julie Barnes?" She raised her small left hand between us and wiggled her fingers. "Ooh," she said playfully, "something seems to be missing." "Hold that thought," I replied, starting to get out of bed. "I'll hold that thought, but I can't hold anything else. I need to pee so bad," she joked. I laughed. "Go ahead, I'll meet you back here." She hurried off, and I took the opportunity to head down to my office, remembering to stop by the bathroom on the way. I retrieved what I needed from the safe and returned to find her curled up under the blanket. Climbing back into bed, I took her left hand again and gazed into her eyes, seeing nothing but love. "Okay, Julie, will you marry me?" I asked, sliding the ring onto her finger. It was slightly too big and would need resizing, but it was perfect for the moment. She examined the ring, a smile spreading across her face. "It's beautiful," she said. "It looks antique. Where did you get it? When did you buy it?" "Remember when I mentioned that auction about a month ago?" I asked. "Yes, I remember. They were auctioning off an estate, right?" "Exactly. I didn't tell you then, but I saw this ring in the catalogue. I went there specifically to buy it and proposed to you. It was crafted in England around 1810 for the Duchess of Avon. It has quite a history. Do you like it?" "I love it," she replied, her eyes shining. "It's the most stunning ring I've ever seen. So are you going to wait for my answer?" What she exclaimed with a grin. "Oh yes, Oliver, yes, I'll marry you. Oh my God, yes." I laughed and pulled her into a tight embrace, feeling a tremendous weight lift off my shoulders. The long journey I had traveled, filled with anger, betrayal, and loss, was finally behind me. Rachel was out of my life, and though the scars would remain, I had moved forward. I had found someone who brought joy, laughter, and purpose back into my life. Julie was my partner in every sense, and together we were building a future, one that promised warmth and love. As we started planning our wedding, life felt lighter. Toby was flourishing, Sabrina was like another daughter to me, and Julie, well, she made me believe in happiness again. It wasn't just about finding love, it was about rediscovering a part of myself that had been buried under years of bitterness and disappointment. The trips to the lake became a regular part of our lives, and with each visit, I felt more at peace. The laughter, the quiet moments, and the family we had built reminded me that life, no matter how hard it can be at times, always has the potential to offer something beautiful on the other side. Rachel had her own path, and I had mine. For the first time in many years, I could genuinely say I was happy, truly happy. The darkness had lifted, leaving behind a life I wanted to live, one I had chosen with the people who mattered most to me. And that was more than enough.